This week, does having a list of standards help or hinder the search for a partner? We'll debate the pros and cons of having a list of pros and cons. And later, one of our listeners sees a new side of her boyfriend after they move in together, and things get messy. Welcome to the talking phase. Hello and welcome to the Talking Phase podcast. I'm Tom, and I'm joined by my amazing and beautiful co-host, Pam.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Tom. My heart feels fuzzy.
Well, you might want to see a doctor about that.
Maybe you're right.
All right,
Maybe you're right.
Before we get to that, as always, I want to do a quick shout out to our amazing producer, Brian, who's always here with us. He's become more popular than either of us. He's our faceless voice, who is always helping us, and he is always on point. Brian, are you here today?
I sure am. Really excited to join this very gooey show of emotion that we've started out for today.
Yeah,
so looking forward to the cuddle puddle.
Very, very warm and fuzzy. And he's not wrong, Brian, because I told you that people are talking to you in the comments over on YouTube. I see more hi Brians than I see hi Pams or hi Toms.
Well, I did see that, and I must say I appreciate the shout outs from the folks in the audience. So thank you, and hello to all of you as well. I'll make sure I'm in the comments responding. Thanks for that.
Very
Awesome.
popular.
That's great.
Popular.
Well, yes, Mr. Popularity. All right. Well, guys, we have a great show planned for you today. I'm excited, Pam, to hear your thoughts on a subject that is near and dear to my heart. And then, of course, Pam, you have been pouring through the emails that our listeners have sent in to Talking Phase.
It's hard to choose these days. It's getting much, much harder to choose which one's going to make it onto the show.
Yeah. Well, but we want to keep those emails coming. So keep sending them to talkingphase@gmail.com. Keep Pam busy reading them. But she's found the perfect email for us today. I think it's going to be really fun for us to talk about it. And I can't wait to hear what everybody thinks about it. Before we get there, though, do you have anything you want to share? Anything exciting going on in your life before we get to the show?
Oh, anything exciting? Well, here in North Carolina, we are not as hot as we were a couple weeks ago, but it does nothing but rain. And so a lot of events have been rained out. We have a concert this week we're supposed to go to on Thursday night to see one of our favorite bands, Blue October. And it's calling for 100% chance of rain, which is not welcome. We needed the water, but it is definitely a little out of control. I feel like I am ready for fall. I have kind of had it with summer at this point. And this time, I think I've had enough tan and I'm ready for some warm coats and pull some boots on again.
I moved from Utah specifically to get away from the snow. I don't mind the cold, but I hate the snow. So that's why I live here in the South now. So I don't know if I'm ready for a coat yet. In fact, I don't even own a coat anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So,
something in between would be nice because things getting rained out means a lot less fun. And that's no good. We just got back from Nashville. And so we had enough sun and heat there to last us probably through October at least. It was blazing hot there. So,
yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I am, as you know, I'm on a dating pause, and which gives me a bunch of free time to do whatever I want. And so what I've been doing, I've gotten back into a little bit of a book narration. I don't know if you knew that. I actually do narrate audio books as a side gig.
I can totally see that. Your voice would be great. I probably listen to that book.
Oh, well, I hope you will. I only have one credit. If you go search Amazon for Tom Milligan, you'll find the one credit that I've got. But I've done just this last weekend, I did a few auditions. So hopefully I'll get a few more books out there over the next couple of months. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I hope they're at least books you want to read.
Well, I won't do them if I don't want to read them. So
okay. So it's not just a side hustle. It's actually enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, for the most part, I mean, it gets kind of frustrating because, when you're trying to read something perfectly, if you screw up, you've got to find a good place to go back in and record it. But you know how it is. I enjoy it.
I do know how that is just from TikTok. I know what it's like to have to go back in and start over and record it. So I imagine it's not a blast.
Yeah, no, it can get pretty mundane, but it's okay. We're having fun with it. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we should get right into this. Anybody who follows us on TikTok knows that I just finished a 7-part series on TikTok about my list of 26 deal breakers and must-haves. And it's
26.
yes, and some people are not real happy about it because for me, there's a no gray area in there. For me, it's like it's on the list for a reason. I'm not going to go through the 26 items. Everybody can relax. If you actually care and want to know what those 26 list items are, you can go to the Talking Phase podcast on TikTok, and there's a playlist there called Tom's List. Feel free to go watch those videos. So we're not going to talk about what's on the list. I want to talk today about the concept of a list because, there's been, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of views on those 7 videos and lots of comments, and 99% of the comments fall into 3 buckets, and some people it's all 3 buckets. So the first bucket that they fall into, and I'm going to ask you, Pam, in just a minute, which bucket you think I fall into. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to these.
All right.
The first of the 3 buckets is that I'm a complete douche nozzle narcissist because I have a list.
Sorry. I wasn't expecting the qualifiers.
I get it. So hard.
Okay. There we go. So, option 1, I'm a douche nozzle narcissist because I have a list. Number 2, I'll never find anyone that meets all the criteria, so I'll be single forever. And number 3, I'll meet and fall for someone and throw the list out the window. Okay,
Wow.
so which of those 3 buckets do you put me in?
So those are the only 3 choices. And, I have, of course, watched all those videos, and I have talked to you at least a dozen times about your list,
At
mostly
least.
trying to convince you to come on over to the gray side. But given those 3 choices, I honestly think, of course, I don't think you're a douche nozzle. So 1 is
I appreciate
off.
that.
Number 2, never finding anyone that meets all the criteria. I think that remains to be seen. It is a very large list. And
That's what
number
she said.
3, the fact that you could meet and fall for someone and throw the list out of the window. Maybe when I first met you, I would have thought it falls into that category. But having gotten to know you and knowing that that list has come from your entire history, basically, I think it is very unlikely that you will ever throw that list out. So I think there needs to be a 4th option. I think there needs to be the option that it's possible that your list is good, that it's not really that complicated, and that somebody will meet your standards. And that would be option 4. And I certainly hope that that's the case, because otherwise, I guess you will be single and alone for the rest of your life. Those are the only choices.
Yeah, well, and it's, obviously there might be 10 other choices. I'm just saying that 99% of the comments are from, and I hate to sound that I'm being sexist or misogynist, but most of the comments are from women. And so
Right.
I'm just saying that these women, 99% of the comments are from women, and 99% of the comments fall into those 3 buckets. And so, and when I said earlier that there's a lot of emotion around this topic, there are some women who are flat out pissed off that I have the gall. And that's where the first one, that I'm a douche nozzle narcissist.
Right.
They're saying because I have a list, I must be a narcissist. I think I'm all that. And my response to that is 2 things. First off, everyone has a list, period. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's written or not. Everyone has a list. I just happen to write mine down. And as far as being a narcissist because I have a list, or I just think I have standards. And of course, there's always the person who says, "Well, what do you bring to the table?" And I've made sure that I meet the criteria on my entire list.
Right.
So my thinking is, a lot of people, again, they said that I will throw the list out the window or at least be flexible. And I know that you're in the flexible camp.
Well, yes, that is the gray camp, and I have read um, probably most of the comments on those videos, and yes, I have always lived in the school of thought that you should be open-minded when you're dating, and that I think I've said this to you before, you should not throw the baby out with the bathwater, that you can meet somebody who would be fantastic for you, but you have said that if there is one thing on the list that box is not checked, that you are completely unwilling to explore a relationship or a dating relationship with that person to find out how big of a deal that one thing is. And we have also discussed the fact that your list is based on your past and damage that has been done by women that you have either married or dated. So your list is constantly expanding.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we definitely look at the whole list scenario differently. I do not have a written list. Actually, I do now, but only because I challenged myself to write a
Oh,
list. Yeah, I
well,
mean, go ahead.
how
What do
did
you got
that
to say?
go?
Well, I mean, my list does not have 26 things on it. I think it has maybe 10 things on it. And it kind of is more of a broad idea of what the person that I envision my next long-term relationship with, what does he look like? Is he kind? Um, does he have a job? Does he have a car? Does he have a sense of humor? So it doesn't feel quite as dramatic as your list, and it definitely fluctuates into the gray area and has fluctuated into the gray area. So
Okay, well, I'm going to challenge you on that.
okay.
Let's use one of those that, I mean, sense of humor is a subjective thing, right? So
Correct.
let's
Sure.
use one that isn't. You said he has to have a car.
Yes.
Where's the gray area? Is Uber okay?
No, the gray area exists on some of the things on my list, but certainly not all of the things on my list. Um, I suppose, I mean, I did date somebody for a little while who had a car, but had a vision impairment and he could not drive at night. And we did manage to meet for dates and he did Uber. Um, so we were trying to work around that restriction, but it did not work out. So I can't say that there's a gray area on the car or the driving because it did not work out. Um, but there are other things that are on my list that, I am willing to get to know somebody, even if something on the list is not checked off.
Such as?
Such as distance is my number one deal breaker on the list. All of my dating apps are set to nobody more than 40 miles from where I live. But Facebook dating refuses to respect your choices. And so a lot of the men that I have matched with on Facebook dating live in other states. And I have entertained conversations with them, but I have never met anybody that lived in another state until recently. Recently, I have decided to go off book into the gray area on my distance restrictions.
Okay, so prior to meeting this guy, that wasn't gray, that was black and white, and you've decided that it's now gray.
Well, it's gray because I don't want to eliminate somebody who might be a great partner and a great choice just because he didn't happen to be born or choose North Carolina as the state he wanted to live in. Um, I think that good things can still come from that gray area. You know, there are human beings live inside of your list, and your list can often be very two-dimensional, and people are three-dimensional. And so I believe that sometimes You don't have a box checked, but the person still seems worthy of getting to know.
Okay, I guess, and no, this is not how I envisioned this conversation going, but I'm actually very curious now. Of the 10 things on your list, how many of them are actual deal breakers?
Well, I'm not looking at the list right now, but I can kind of see it in my head. I mean, things like smoking are complete deal breakers.
Mhm.
Things like if he's 5'7", I'm not going to date him. He could be the greatest person in the world, but I am 5'11", and it's just not comfortable for me. And
So,
so,
can I
oh,
ask I'm gonna
sure,
ask a question on that.
sure,
So, I put on my list that she must be attractive, and
okay.
that's literally all I said about physical appearance. Um, do you think I would be more or less of a douche nozzle um, if I put must have giant tits?
Oh, probably more.
Why? You can put must be tall.
Yeah, but
That's your preference.
okay. I do believe that preferences do come into play on our lists. Um, you're asking me if people would think you're a bigger jerk if you had must have big tits on your list, and they would. But that doesn't mean that you're not entitled to have it on your list. I think that anybody has a list, whether it's in their head or written down. We are all 100% entitled to whatever our standards are, and a list and standards are almost synonymous. And we
I
did
agree.
standards in our very first episode, and I love that episode today even more when I listen back to it. We're all allowed to have our standards. You don't get to judge mine, and I don't get to judge yours. So the women who called you names because of your list, they can kind of fuck off, because it's really none of their business, except that you made it their business when you told them what was on your list. See, my list lives in my head. And so,
Yeah, and they can still fuck off, even
yeah,
though I made it public.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I
yeah,
mean, nobody has the right to change your list, because they don't have the ability to change your list any
yeah,
more than they have the ability to change my list. The difference between us is that I am willing to get to know somebody who doesn't check all my boxes. Even if it's just one box they don't check, I'm still willing to get to know that person.
yeah. And I think in one of our dozens of conversations, one
Mhm.
of the things that I said to you is the one of the main reasons that I write it down is that if something isn't written down, it's a lot easier to cheat. And I say cheat because if I have something that I consider a deal breaker, let's use smoking, since that's on both of our lists and it's
Okay.
a complete deal breaker. If that's not written down, maybe I'll go, well, maybe she only smokes outside and I'll put up with it or something like that. And I know that's an extreme example, but
It's not. I don't think that is an extreme example. Actually, even as you were saying that, I was thinking about a comment that I read today about a woman who said that smoking was on her list. And she met a man, and he only smokes once in a while and only outside. And they're in a really, really good relationship because she was willing to overlook that box and get to know him. And she realized that that type of smoking doesn't bother her, and she really loves him. And so she's really, you know, glad that she overlooked that quote unquote deal breaker. And so smoking isn't that extreme, because I think that for most things on people's lists, if you meet somebody, not on a dating app and not in a contrived way, you're just out, you're at a party, and somebody comes over and starts talking to you, and you really enjoy that conversation, but you don't know, you haven't had a talking phase, that you're texting back and forth, asking questions. You don't know their politics, you don't know their religion, you don't know if they smoke. You don't really know anything. You're just back in the 80s or 90s, and you're getting to know that person and deciding whether it's somebody that you want to pursue a relationship with or get to know. And then you're learning these things that, oh, you know what? I don't really like that, but I really like them. And therefore, we are in the gray area.
okay. And I understand. And again, I really have a, I don't, I'm not a gray thinker. It's kind of black or white. And part of that is that I recognize that I know enough about myself that I can justify anything. I can justify doing just about anything. And so I know that it might seem immature. I consider it quite mature, actually, that I know myself well enough to know that I need to set some rules and boundaries for myself. And thinking of comments, I read a comment earlier today on, I can't remember which video it was on, it doesn't matter, but she wrote that all she cares about is shared values and compatibility. And if we have shared values and compatibility, everything else will fall into line. I don't sweat the small stuff, is what she said in her comment. And
Ain't that how we all felt in our 20s?
exactly.
Or maybe even our 30s?
I think those are a complete cop out. How do you define compatible without having a list?
Because I think it's in her head,
But she has a list. Like I said, whether it's written or not, she has a list.
And I've agreed with you on that. Like, we all have, you call it a list, I call it an idea. I have an idea of what I'm looking for and what I'm not willing to settle for. And so if somebody falls in between those two things of settling and exceeding expectations, therein lies my gray area. So if I met that guy and he smelled like smoke, there would have been no second date. But for her, it wasn't that big a deal. It just wasn't.
So what you just described, I think, is what in our business, we call that an MVP, minimum viable product. So you've got your minimum viable product that you're saying, I'm willing to handle it at this point. Anything below this line, I can't do it. Anything above the line is acceptable, but there is an acceptable minimum in your world, it sounds like.
I don't know. Acceptable minimum sounds really bad. It sounds like I have super lowered my standards, and I don't think I've ever lowered my standards, and I don't see myself ever lowering my standards. But if a person exceeds expectations on 9 out of 10 things, but then on the 10th thing, they're a work in progress and they're willing to do the work. Like, for say, I met somebody in another state, as I mentioned, and normally that would be an immediate left swipe on a dating app, but I met him differently and got to know him, even though we lived in a different state, without any intention of it becoming romantic. I don't care where somebody lives if we're just going to be friends. And so I enjoyed the conversation. And through that conversation, I found out that he is not at all committed to where he lives right now. And so if he's willing to relocate to where I live, because I am committed to where I am, my family's here, my kids are here, I love where I live. So if he's willing to relocate to this location, then why am I going to, again, throw that baby out with the bathwater instead of giving it a chance and seeing where it goes, even though long distance relationships are number one on my non-starter list?
Across the board, my wife has told me, just please do not throw the baby out with anything in general, bathwater or otherwise.
Ryan, I love you. Were we too serious just now?
Rule number 1 of parenting.
Yeah,
don't throw
the baby. Yeah, just don't throw the baby.
Thank you.
I think that's great.
It's really one of my favorite sayings because, it fits into so many different situations. And this happens to be probably the biggest one for me, because we are so different when it comes to these lists, with your black and white and my gray. And so, I don't know that either one of us are going to change each other's mind.
No.
I think you're really lucky if you meet somebody, a unicorn, so to speak, that can check all those boxes. And I'm really lucky if I left a box unchecked and it works out anyway, because he winds up living in the same state as me. But what if I had just swiped left? What if I had just said no?
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand. And I guess it's about the risk you're willing to take, right?
Right. Well,
like,
no risk, no reward.
Yeah. I mean, I look at my list and I think I look at each list item and I think I wouldn't compromise on that. I mean, a lot of people have said, which of these things are, would you be willing to compromise on? So I've reviewed this list more in the last 2 weeks than I've had in the last 2 years, and not a damn thing. I think they're all important.
Yeah, no. And in your defense, I have looked at your list multiple times myself, and we have debated it and talked about it and made videos on it. And I am here to say your list is completely reasonable. I mean, there's not one thing on there that I saw and was like, oh, this is horrible. You're never going to meet anybody. You're a terrible human being. But, I think that another thing that was on my list, let's say 6 months ago, I love tattoos, but I only love very tasteful tattoos that aren't all over. And now more and more you see everybody on TV has full sleeves of tattoos, legs, arms. I mean, it's gotten to be a humongous thing, tattoos, body art. And for a long time, if I saw a man with a sleeve of tattoos, that was an automatic no for me. And the more I look at tattoos and think about it, and I have 2 tattoos myself. One of them is not at all tasteful because it's in the middle of my back, and everybody knows that's called a tramp stamp, or at least it used to be.
Pam has a tramp stamp,
Yeah,
everyone.
and no one's less happy that I have it than me. I was very drunk and very young, and yeah, it's there. But I have a second tattoo on my ankle, and Nikki has the same tattoo on her ankle, and that's what I used to think, like tasteful tattoos or tattoos like the one on my back that you can cover with jeans or with a bathing suit. Nobody sees it unless I want them to. And they're generally behind me if they see it.
If you know what I mean.
And so, now that I see so many more people with tattoos, even though it was on my cons list, it's now each person is an individual. So, for me, the flexibility and the fluidity of having a list that is your guide, but not in black and white, has served me okay. I can't say
Okay,
well.
that's fair. And
Served me okay.
I think as we ought to agree that we're going to wrap up our conversation about lists. We've beat it to death for the last 2 or 3 weeks on TikTok. And we wanted to kind of finish this up here, but I want to finish it up with something I'm going to agree with you on your list that you just said.
I can't wait to hear it.
If I see a man with a full sleeve, I'm going to swipe left too.
Oh, Tom, that's not a fair one. Okay. Well, having seen your list, I'm not going to call out anything on your list because you have chosen to not talk about anything on your list. But I can honestly agree that having a list is beneficial if you don't trust yourself to not end up dating somebody that is a huge red flag. If you're the kind of person who runs towards red flags instead of away, if you're the type of person who can't trust yourself to pick somebody for the right reasons, and that doesn't just mean that they're good in bed or that they're hot, somebody that's really going to complement your life and bring peace and joy and happiness to you, then you need a written list and you need to check things off. I don't feel I've ever been that person, but I've made a shit ton of mistakes, so I probably should have had a list.
Yeah, and that's where I am. So with that, I think we can close the chapter forever, hopefully, on the concept of the list. So anybody out there who's sick of us talking about the list, we're done.
But I'm done.
Deal?
That is a awesome deal with me.
Awesome. All right. So let's go to mail.
You've got mail.
Hear that? We have mail.
We do.
All right. Well, let's see what we have today, Tom. This says, Dear Tom and Pam, I feel like I'm losing my mind. My boyfriend of 2 years and I just moved in together after talking about getting engaged. Within a month of living together, I realized that he is a total slob. Ew, nobody likes a slob. He leaves his clothes on the floor, dishes in the sink, and the toilet seat is always up. I have asked him to please help clean up, and he agrees, but then he doesn't do it. I'm so frustrated. I work full time, and I feel like I am now the maid too. His apartment was cleaner than our place together, and he is a great guy. I have never doubted wanting a future with him. But now I wonder what else I didn't see in the last 2 years. Is this a red flag that he's not the guy for me? And it's signed a maid in Manhattan, which is adorable, by the way.
Clever.
Very adorable. It's much more adorable than her topic, which, God, I mean, I think I feel a lot of gratitude for the fact that I have not been in a relationship with a man who was a slob. Tom, are you a cleansiness man? That
Well,
was not
first things
the way.
first, I'm kind of a germaphobe and I really hate clutter. I don't think I'm quite at the OCD level or anything, but I don't like to have to move stuff to find stuff. So that's more laziness than anything. So it's just easier for me to put stuff away than it is to have it around. So I guess one could look around my place and say that I'm relatively neat, but not obsessively neat. Um,
How about that toilet seat though?
I think the toilet seat wars are the dumbest things ever that created controversy in a relationship. Because first
Wait,
off,
what? This is a thing? Toilet seat wars?
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Brian, do you put the toilet seat down after you use the bathroom?
Yes. Isn't that how it goes?
Yeah, I would think that's how it goes. I'll tell you for a fact, I live with a 21-year-old kid and he does not put the toilet seat down. So it clearly is not how it goes, even when you threaten them.
well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you can buy toilet seats now that automatically go down. So if you have a guy that is so fucking lazy that he literally won't take his finger and put the seat down, it takes 1 second. First off, that's a shitty thing for him. Um,
Right.
Now, again, you're gonna any of the men listening right now are gonna go, why can't they put it down?
I was just thinking that's what my son says to me all the time. He's like, why is it easier for me to put it down than it is for you to put it up?
Well, he's 21,
Right.
and and I said the same thing when I was a teenager or whatever. But
So he's irrelevant. I just need
well,
to
no,
train
it
him
just
better.
comes down to for me, it's respect.
Yeah.
Um, it's respect. And I stitched a video, I don't know, a few months ago where some dude was talking about how many urinary events are involved. Like he has to lift it up and put it down and it's like, dude, you're doing math to figure out something that literally takes a half a second to fix. So I think he's an asshole just for leaving the toilet seat up.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about his other things. And what if, she didn't bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up. Toilet paper wars are a big deal too. Does the toilet paper go over or does it go under? I have seen so many memes over the years on toilet paper wars where people can literally find a reason to fight about every single thing. If you don't like it, just pull the roll out and put it the way you like it. But, eh, is she looking for an excuse to get out? Is
I don't
that
know if
what
she's looking for an excuse to get out, but she's certainly looking for an excuse to be pissed off.
and they're gonna fight? I mean,
Yeah.
like he's they've talked about it. He's not listening. Maybe he's looking for an excuse to get out. I mean, like if your girlfriend who you're about to get engaged to says to you, listen, I work all day. I would really like to come home and not have to clean up after you. I mean, like, is that an unreasonable request in any world?
Well, the other thing that I saw interesting in there is she said that his apartment was cleaner than their place is together.
Hmm.
So now so one could say, well, she moved in and it got messy, so maybe it's her fault. I mean, they could infer that, but it sure sounds like she's trying to keep it clean. But
Right.
here's an interesting thing I would love to see. And so we don't have her name. She signed it in Maine, Manhattan, but whoever you are, I'd love for you to send us a picture of your bathroom. I'd like to see if your curling iron, your hair dryer, your makeup brushes, and all that shit is sitting around the bathroom.
I don't know. It seems to me like you just turned this around and made it about her
I,
instead of about
I'm
him.
I'm just saying, like everyone says on all my shit, they say I'd love to hear her side. Well, I'd love to hear his side.
Well, I hope that she is listening to us right now. And I hope that if she goes into her bathroom and sees that all of her stuff is all over the countertop, that she realizes that she is not innocent either. We have drawers, we have cabinets. I mean,
Mhm.
those things only take a second to take out and put away. My hairdryer lives underneath my sink. I would not cohabitate, get engaged, or marry somebody who treated me like their maid or who expected me to clean up after them. And if she's willing to do that now at the beginning of the relationship, she's in for a lifetime of cleaning up after him and the kids. And I would gather that he's not going to be much help if he can't help himself.
I would agree. I will tell you, one of the podcasts that I listen to, it's one of my favorites. In case anybody's out there that hasn't listened to this, they know that my favorite podcast, aside from this one, of course, and aside from the one that Brian and I do together, is called Small Town Murder. And it's two comedians. They do a true crime podcast. It's hilarious. and it's James and Jimmy. And back in 2020, during the election season, they started a fake presidential campaign. It was James and Jimmy, and their motto was a T hole for every B hole.
Oh, I love that.
And it's because James said that the secret to happy families, happy marriage, is that everybody has their own toilet.
Unless you can't afford it.
Oh, well, he said that's the secret. He said, if you can't afford it, don't get married or don't have kids. You need a T hole for every B hole. That's
So,
his
Tom,
motto. And it was, again, it was a fake presidential thing, but
a good point.
Yeah. So my ex-wife and I, now, by the way, I'm about to prove him wrong, because when we designed our last house, which we designed, like every square inch of that house was designed by us, our master bedroom had 2 master bathrooms. So on either side of the bedroom, there was a complete master bathroom. So T hole for every B hole. And so I never went into her bathroom so she could leave her curling irons and her 38 makeup brushes. And by the way, that is a real number, 38. I didn't make that up.
I have one makeup brush. How sad.
And, so she could do whatever she wanted in her bathroom, and I didn't care. And I could leave my seat up if I wanted to. I could do whatever I wanted. And so I think there is some validity to that, although obviously it didn't save our marriage, which is great. But we go back to this letter, and it's like, this guy is just disrespectful. He doesn't give a shit about her feelings. He doesn't care about how hard she works. I mean, it sounds like they're both working full time. I assume he's working full time. She said she is, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
And she talks to him about the seat, talks to him about cleaning up, and he basically is, he's basically giving her the middle finger.
Hey, if he can get over the embarrassment that she wrote this email, she didn't put his name, she didn't put her name, then I think the best solution would be to let him listen to the podcast. And maybe he'll realize that if he wants to keep a good woman, he needs to clean up after himself. And next week we can cover thermostats.
Oh yeah, thermostat wars. Now that's real. I'll fight that one.
There's a lot of things in a relationship to fight over. But cleaning up after your boyfriend before he's your husband should not be one of them.
So I guess, her final question there is, is this like, just, what did she say? What else haven't I seen? Is this a red flag?
Yeah, she said, is this a red flag that he's not the guy for me? And I hate, again, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Have a discussion with this man. Tell him how you feel. If you don't want to let him listen to the podcast, put your foot down. If he's prepared to lose you because he doesn't want to pick up his underwear or put down the toilet seat, then he's not the guy for you.
Here's another idea. Let me throw this one at you, Pam. What if she just did the same thing?
They would have a very disgusting house.
Yeah, but I mean, and I agree. And does that get his attention if she just stopped cleaning up?
I don't know, but is that the right way to handle any situation where you're thinking about marrying somebody? Like, I'm rubber, you're glue.
I don't know. It goes back to that story I told once about sometimes you just have to get I'm the mule. Remember that story where you have to hit the mule up the side of the head with a 2x4? Sometimes you got to hit men up the side of the head with a 2x4 or they don't pay attention.
All right, Maid of Manhattan. That's it. Stop cleaning up after him and stop cleaning up after yourself, or sit down and have a conversation with him. Let him know how much this matters to you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think every time we get one of these, it's always coming down to communication. You got to have a conversation.
Probably the biggest problem in any relationship is communication.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay.
Well, I don't know if we've helped her or not. Hopefully we haven't ruined her relationship. And who knows, maybe she'll write in and let us know how it turned out. In the meantime, I want to thank everybody for sending us the emails. I don't really complain about reading them because I absolutely love them. And I want more. So I even have some friends who have offered to help read emails, and I don't need the help because I love reading them. So send them to Talking Phase, and that's with a PH in phase, talkingphase@gmail.com. Send us your problems. Don't send us your list. We're done with that. Yeah. Send us your problems. Ask us for advice. We don't promise not to make fun of you, but we do promise to give you our honest opinion on whatever you have to say. So please keep sending them. If you have any questions, again, it's talkingphase@gmail.com.
That is awesome. And I am so glad that Pam enjoys reading those emails. I love reading the ones that she sends to me or tells me to read. But I'm so glad she culls through them for us. So everybody out there, get those emails out. Also, as I do every week, please take just a second right now to rate what you've been listening to, especially if you like it. Give us that 5-star rating. Write a quick review, just a couple of words. Maybe, tell us if you have a list. Again, don't send us your list there. But if you want to send the list on Talking Phase, that's okay. But I would like to know, in these comments, am I a douchebag for having a list? Is your significant other a complete slob? What do you think our Made in Manhattan should do? Anyway, share the podcast with your family and your friends. We do this every week. This comes out every Friday morning about 8:00, give or take. This isn't the only place. We are on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on, pretty much every platform you can think of. But we're also on all the social medias, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I think that's it.
You can't run. You can run, but you can't hide.
Yes, we are everywhere. If you say something about Talking Phase, Alexa will probably send you something. I don't know. She's listening all the time.
I'm going to try that now after we get done.
There you go. All right. With that, we are done. Until next Friday, this is Pam and Tom signing off.
Have a great day, great night, great week, great weekend.